Hi friends, and welcome to the channel. This is where I enjoy sharing my insights. You undoubtedly have heard of the law of attraction. But I want to talk about the law of lack, which is based on the same assumptive principles. And that we are indeed living assumptively, whether or not we fear or that we have faith. They are governed by the same lawful principles. So, if you're kind of tired of the law of attraction and it doesn't seem to be working for you, let's talk about the laws of lack. And maybe you'll be a convert. We are all living assumptively. And sometimes the law of attraction is called the law of assumption. And the law of lack is one side of the same force. So to kind of get into the dynamic processes of creativity, and dynamic implies the word two, we must understand how we are caught in perception. A limited perception which assumes it knows. And so many things that we do are assumptive based on our limited perspective. However, faith might be described as an expansion of this dynamic process, which can't be proven in literal ways. Let's put it this way. You've been wondering for a long time whether or not you exist. I know that sounds strange to you, but that's humanity in general is wondering, am I real? And you are assuming that you are unreal. And in many ways, you're assuming that you're real. But in the dynamic process, we're talking synonymously, even though it seems like it's double talk. So, let's start with the first law of lack, which is, I am running out, or I have run out, or I will run out soon. Any kind of supply and demand issue going on in your life, and you've called it. You've determined that you are in a situation where you would consider it a stalemate. So your worldview at this point, if you're stuck at a loss, empty, whatever the case may be, you have within you this picture, this dynamic picture of an immovable object meeting an ongoing force. Which of the two is true? Both are true, but you might say one of them is truer because you are still sentient. And it's sentience that seems to get us out of every dark corner. So, we have to suspend our belief that we're in a stalemate, that we've met an immovable object. We are an ongoing force that has met an immovable object. Let's suspend that little image for just a second and get back into this idea of running out. You've looked in your bank account. You've looked in your supply closet. You've looked at the calendar. You have anything that seems like a dwindling supply. Okay? What you have done is that you have made this grave error that many of us do, including yours truly for the longest time, is I assumed I was going to live longer than what looked like my supply. And faith is being let in on a big secret. That you, number one, you, and I should say I exist. I am real. So I am the supplier. And we go back to the cupboard and we see we got 2 months of supply. I go to the bank account and I see I've got 3 months of expenses. I am real. I am the supply. Jesus said, I'm the way. This is just new language. I am the supply. You have to assume for the law of lack to work, you have to assume that you're going to outlive yourself. So then we get into this double think again. We get into the philosopher's trick of, can God create a rock bigger than God can pick up? Apparently so. If you are afraid of running out. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, what about when I die? You would have to assume that death is a finality. And I'm assuming that death is not a finality, but a transition. We have anecdotal evidence of it. There are people, countless and countless and countless stories of people who have had something called an NDE, a near-death experience where they were pronounced on earth clinically dead, and then they reported being conscious. Some people dead for 20 minutes, maybe even longer. Pronounced dead, but have recollections of things that happened after they died. So we have to assume that consciousness does not die. And from there, you either more align with the forever sentience that you are, or the part of you that feels final. So you are assuming. The way I do it is I say, I am the supply. Not the cupboard. Not the experts. Not the market conditions. Not the wallet. Not the piggy bank. I. And if I feel like I'm going to run out, then I am going to outlive myself. I'm stuck there. You see? The error is we think the supply is out there. So you suffer from, not you, but many people suffer from what Eric Butterworth calls the miracle syndrome. Hands out like this. Who's going to supply my needs? I supply my needs. Even if it comes as an opportunity, even if it comes as a gift, even if it comes as an idea, I have always supplied my needs with these hands, not God's hands out there, these. And that also includes every part of my environment and people and relatives and friends and acquaintances and new people coming in and out. I consider myself all of that, you see. If you are not your environment, this doesn't make any sense to you. I trust my environment. That includes all the people in it, all the conditions in it, etc. I am all of that because there's no out there. The other part of this is to examine the dynamic process of the universe itself. Is that the universe started as a speck. Started. So what we have to do is to create an image of ourselves to understand the non-imaging part of who we are. So, in this little thought experiment, the variable that you have to consider is who's imagining this. But let's do this. I want you to imagine the void. It's hard to imagine the void without there being somebody projecting that from their imagination. The observer can't be taken out of this, but let's take the observer out for argument's sake. And I want you to imagine the void, as Genesis calls it. And then let's think scientifically in the universe being a speck. Now you got the dynamic process of foreground and background. So the universe started us as a speck. But so you're dreaming this. The observer is a part of this. So this is what makes it difficult. So foreground and background. The universe is growing into what? The void? What is the void? What is the universe growing into? If not itself. The void is itself. The background is itself. Foreground and background go together. So the law of attraction, as it's called, is an acknowledgement that the universe grows from a seed and it grows into itself outward, like the sun. The sun supplies its energy. You supply everything. You supply consciousness, you supply breath, you supply the so-called outside world, which we're not even sure. That the outside world might be considered the world without. The world without the I, the observer. Is that real? The I out there? No. I argue no. That I am a process that enfolds. Everything has been enfolded already. All the supply, all the time, all the knowledge, all the skill, all the talent, all the people. It was like the universe shrunk itself, limited itself in the form of a human who becomes ubiquitous in human form. You are ubiquitous and assimilating. When you are omnipresent all the time, everywhere, and you are assimilating, you are absorbed into. And then there's no more observer. Then you are aligned with the unity of all things. And that's where trust comes in. That is a state of being. Trust is a state of being that feels peaceful, grounded, and keeping it real. And you're not swept away into something called tomorrow and lack and any of this thing. Because you realize if you were the supply, you are eternal. You cannot outlive eternity. Welcome home. Welcome to the bright side. The dark side is a temporary forgetting. It's always been the bright side. This dark stuff that the universe grew into is itself the bright side. Inverted? Hiding? So much to discover in this dynamic process. You just have to decide if your assumptions are what you want them to be. Do you assume you're going to run out of money? Is that what you want? You assume you're going to be lonely forever. You assume you're going to die before your supply. Is that what you want? It's a basic answer. I happen to not want that. I don't want the law of lack. Because it will provide for me lack. Because it's the same force. So I can use my creativity to be an insane, insidious criminal and be quite successful. Or I can use my creativity to make beautiful things that help people. The universe is lawful on either side of these so-called dynamic processes. The question is, how do you want to use the law? The law of I. My name is Ryan Hebert. Hope you enjoyed these insights. Please check out my blog. It's called mymorningmotivator.com.